Right, bishop versus pawns, a technique called the tail hook, which you can also see in a rook versus two connected passed pawns. So this is white to play in a game from 1979, so sort of a long time ago. And as far as I can tell, it was played sort of very well from this point by both sides. But it's very good at demonstrating the tail hook. And what the tail hook is going to involve is a lot of attacking of white's pawns from behind, by the bishop, also by the king eventually coming around. And that's sort of consistent with the pawns in the crosshairs idea, which is one of the rules that we should apply in opposite coloured bishops ending. If you're the weaker side defending, you want to always attack your opponent's pawns as much as possible to force them onto the colour square of your opponent's bishop. And it's a similar sort of idea here, because if you can force these pawns onto dark squares, then we can use our bishop and king to control some sort of diagonal of light squares. Basically, that's the plan. So let's go through what happens if white tries a bit of shouldering. So if white plays king c5, black tries to get their king over, king d6. Now this actually works, this shouldering idea, if black just sort of politely goes along with it, with, I don't know, something like king f7. King f7 is actually a losing move, and white just starts shoving these pawns down the board. King e8, king c7, still doing the shouldering. Black can come and attack these pawns, bishop d1, trying to force them to move onto the dark squares as discussed, but it's too late. White plays b5. And that's gone. You can see that's gone. You can't take the pawn on a4. In fact, yeah, what do you do? To be honest, you've got to cover the b7 square, and you can't do it and collect the a pawn. So that's just a win for white now. So back in this position where white had tried the king c5, king d6 shouldering plan, you need to get on with the pawns in the crosshairs earlier with bishop d1. Attack those pawns, basically. I think that absolutely forces a5, doesn't it? Yeah, it absolutely does. Yeah, you cannot lose that pawn as white, otherwise black's bishop will just wait and then take the other one. So a5, and then we're controlling this diagonal. And so the white king can't shoulder the black king and not help those pawns cross the a6 or the b5 square. So b4, and we just wait. Just wait on that diagonal, because white's king has to come and help. So king over to c6, doesn't really matter whether it's c6 or c5. We're going to make our way to the c8 square. We're going to get the king round, it's going to be fine. And if white pushes the pawn, we can even just take it, and that's a draw. We're going to get to the crucial c8 square in king and rook's pawn versus king. But white doesn't have to do this shouldering idea. White can try and do this thing called, Dvoretsky calls it autopilot, where he uses the king and the pawns, they just sort of generally help each other get through. The king and the pawns advance together. He just calls it autopilot. So black needs a defensive plan here. And let's try and get the king over. King f6, b4, sensible first move. Now, if black plays king e7 here, the same sort of idea, it's not as good. This is still drawn at this stage, but when white pushes the b pawn, a couple of moves that lose here. One of them is king d7. That's now lost, because white just sort of gets on with the autopilot thing. King a6, king c8, the king's desperately trying to get in front of those pawns. And king a7, and you can see that white's just helpless there. There's not really anything to stop this pawn coming through. I mean, the black bishop can come and guard the b7 square, but it can't guard the b7 square and at the same time stop this pawn coming forward and lending a hand to this b7 push. So that would be lost. That was king d7. And even at this stage, playing this bishop d1 move, that is also lost, because white can just push the b pawn. And we might see king over, king a6, and again it's too late for black basically. I mean, if we saw bishop takes a4, then we're going to see b7, king c7, king a7, and you can see that that's gone. Black is still drawing at this stage. There are 3 drawing moves actually, which are bishop g4. I don't know how you'd think to play that. Bishop f3, and then king into d6. Okay, and they're all sort of aimed towards this thing called the tail hook, which is probably better explained with a different move to king e7 on the last move. Okay, so you can still, there was still time to set up this thing called the tail hook, but if you're at this stage on black's second move from the original position, intent on this tail hook defense, it makes more sense to play king e5. And white's like, right, well, I don't know what you're doing there, I'm just going to crack on with this autopilot, guiding my pawns all the way through to the end. And you're not trying to make your way in front of the pawns to blockade them. You're coming around the back this time. So king e5, king d4. And yeah, white would go, I don't know, king b6. Let's try that one. If we see king b6, then we've got bishop to f3. And white still might be thinking, I don't really know what you're doing here. You know, your king's gone out of the game, and I've got these 2 pawns. How are you stopping them? And it's like, no, our king's not out of the game, because what we're going to do is, as you advance the a pawn, we're going to have our king keeping in contact with this pawn, whilst the bishop's blockading the front pawn. You see the same sort of trick with a rook against 2 passed pawns. And black's still got to be careful here. I think bishop g2 loses. You don't just wait on this diagonal. You have to play bishop a8 here. Let's just see why. So yeah, first of all, the draw. Bishop a8, king a6, king c5, push the pawn, king c6, and the draw's obvious. So why couldn't you play, just to sort of understand this a bit more, why couldn't we play bishop g2 and just wait on that diagonal? Well, now white can play this king a6 move, and then when king c5, b6, we're going to be blocking, basically. We're now threatening b7, which blocks the a8 square. So yeah, we can't play king c6 anymore, because before with the bishop on a8 we played king c6, but we're blocking our own bishop's control of b7 if we do that. Black might try bishop f1 check, king b7, check again, king c7, it's gone. So back in this position, this was a draw, but we do have to play bishop a8 to sort of fully implement this this tail hook. Let's go back to this bit here where white played king to b6. What about pawn to b6? Well, we've got bishop f3, and white's got a couple of tries here. Let's look at king a6, king c5, a5, and again we're going to make contact with this pawn, and that one's even simpler, isn't it? Because yeah, we're going to be winning that pawn next move, or after b7, taking that with check and then taking on a5. So that's the tail hook, nicely demonstrated. Or if white sees that coming and tries king b5, then we can check white and then come round again. You know, we might see a5, king b4, and that a pawn's gone straight away. So we might see, I don't know, b7, bishop f3 check. What should we go? King b6, bishop takes b7, draw. I think I've covered everything. So in the game it went king a5, king f6, b4, king e5. Yeah, and black's coming to behind those pawns. I feel like there was something else I wanted to cover. Yeah, in this king e7 line, white pushes the pawn b5, that was it. If we come over with the king d7, this is now lost, but only if white plays king a6, which I showed, and it's gone. I showed that line, but white still has a chance to mess it up here with king b6, where this pawns in the crosshairs is going to work, because yeah, I mean, what does white do there? They can't move anywhere, so that's actually going to work, attacking the pawns from behind. So in this position, yeah, white wins with king a6. Interestingly, in this position, we've still got time to play king d6 and still employ the tail hook. So we might see b6, bishop e2. How about that for a move? Just white can't go anywhere there. Or if we saw king b6 here, then yeah, bishop d1, just attacking that pawn again. a5, bishop e2. I think we saw that in a transposition somewhere. Yeah, so that's the tail hook, and I think it sort of demonstrates the pawns in the crosshairs idea. And I'm going to be looking at some opposite colour bishop positions where this was sort of a subset of it. Because if you think about opposite colour bishops' endings, you know, with their drawing tendencies, the stronger side can be like 2 pawns up, but just can't get anywhere. They see a fortress coming. So in those situations, one thing you want to watch out for is, and there's some fantastic examples, or some really brilliant examples. If you're 2 pawns up and you can't get anywhere, even though you're so much material up because it's opposite colour bishops, in a way your bishop's just sort of useless, isn't it? It's like useless because it's the opposite colour to your opponent's. So you can't really do anything with it. But what if you got one more pawn for it and just sacked it? You know, if you can't do anything with your extra 2 pawns because you're in an opposite colour bishop situation, why not take away the opposite colour bishop situation and have 3 pawns for the bishop? And then all of a sudden, the defending side, who are probably already employing pawns in the crosshairs as part of their defence of opposite colour bishops, they've got to carry on doing it, and maybe they might end up in this tail hook situation. So I guess it's good to have knowledge of this tail hook situation, because if you're the defending side, if you're defending opposite colour bishops, you need to be on the lookout at any given stage, I reckon, for my opponent could just sack their bishop, maybe just get one more pawn for it. And if you're the stronger side, then you want to be on the lookout for that. But any given time, you could be transposing into this tail hook situation, or a situation where the defending side can't quite get the tail hook, because if you've got a good knowledge of it, you can see that they can't get it. So it's definitely worth spending some time on this and understanding this tail hook. I don't think I fully do yet, but yeah, I'm going to keep thinking about it. Anyway, hopefully that's useful.